Time sure does fly by fast, doesn't it? It was 5 years ago that the sequel to Godzilla 2014 was announced, and now here we are. After all the hype and anticipation, Godzilla King of the Monsters has come and gone, leaving its unique mark on the long-running franchise. And I think it's safe to say that things didn't play out exactly as we'd hoped or expected. The film was met with mixed reactions from those both in and outside the Godzilla fandom. Critics were merciless, sometimes unjustifiably so, and worst of all, it underperformed at the box office, not making nearly as much as either Godzilla 2014 or Kong Skull Island. The latter point in particular was a kick in the teeth to those who were pumped to see Godzilla being given the respect the character deserves outside of Japan. It was a sign that Godzilla was going mainstream, that there were many more people out there that cared about this monster as much as we do. Maybe that's still the case, but needless to say, King of the Monsters' dismal earnings, especially in the US, really put a damper on the momentum established by its predecessor. It's an interesting thing to ponder. Why did so many stay home for King of the Monsters when, at least on the surface, it answers many of the criticisms made about 2014? Ask your average moviegoer what they didn't like about the 2014 film, and they'll likely tell you that it was dull, slow, and that there wasn't enough Godzilla. Thus, King of the Monsters is the opposite: fast-paced, exciting, and containing bigger, more epic monster scenes that come at a more consistent rate. And yet, these adjustments didn't improve the film either critically or financially, especially critically, where it is being lambasted for being dumb, loud schlock. Godzilla fans who love it will of course tell you that these detractors just don't get it, and they may be right in some sense, but 2014 was a very well-received movie, and that is just as much a true in-spirit Godzilla film as King of the Monsters. Maybe the mediocre reception by audiences of Godzilla 2014 is the reason for the lack of interest in the sequel. Maybe after not getting what they were seeking last time, after the jarringly disappointing death of Bryan Cranston's character and the constant taunting and teasing of the monster fights, they decided they couldn't be bothered going out to see the follow-up, especially 5 years after the fact, a long enough time for interest to fade. All that being said, what matters most is whether King of the Monsters is a good Godzilla movie, and after seeing it a whopping 4 times in the theater, I feel like I can confidently say it is. As many of you may know, I was a bit cold with King of the Monsters upon first viewing. My first impression review is decidedly mixed, equal parts compliments and criticisms, and while I will not be taking the review down, I don't know if I can necessarily stand by everything I said in that review. I have warmed up to King of the Monsters considerably since my initial impressions. I think as far as adapting the essence of Godzilla for the mainstream, it achieves its goals, and does so with so much respect and reverence for these classic characters and the franchise overall that I find it impossible to be mad or disappointed with it. The film is peppered with so many great moments, and every monster was given their scenes to shine. Mothra, majestic and beautiful; Rodan, fiery and ferocious; Ghidorah, terrifying and all-encompassing; and of course the king himself, Godzilla, powerful, regal, and defined by relentless determination. I wonder how many kids saw these creatures for the first time and were left in awe. If it's even just one, then this film was worth it. I've also come to appreciate the world of the film itself more. Having the film focused on a large band of monster hunting scientists and experts armed with the most state-of-the-art technology at their disposal is a classic kaiju setup. And while the characters are merely faces to get the audience from various points, this is nothing new for the franchise. Godzilla and the kaiju genre in general has always relied on archetypes to tell simple and efficient human stories. And with the case of King of the Monsters, the novelty is seeing these archetypes brought to life by charismatic name-brand actors who don't phone it in. And then there's the score. Bear McCreary's music really cements this as a full-fledged Godzilla movie. Hearing the Ifukube March in a Hollywood production of this caliber is so surreal. We've come so far from the days of the Roland Emmerich Godzilla, a product of a time when Hollywood bought and adapted iconic geek properties with little regard for the fans that made it popular enough to do so. I'm jealous of the young fans who got to see this film in theaters. If it were me, I'd be begging my parents to get me every piece of merchandise they can find. I still have my grievances with the film. I still feel like it cuts away too much, a stylistic choice that is very much the opposite of how Japan makes their kaiju films. I think too much of it is shrouded in darkness and rain, which I know is part of the plot, but it nevertheless makes the film visually muddled when it didn't have to be. Pacific Rim was covered in darkness and rain too, but that film pops with color. King of the Monsters doesn't, and I feel like it's a missed opportunity. And lastly, I think the film drags in the second act, and there are some narrative turns that feel needlessly shoehorned in for the sake of fan service and nothing more. That being said, overall, I've made my peace with King of the Monsters. It's a really good entry in the franchise that seeks nothing more than to entertain the fans, to the point where it may even alienate those who are not. It's a big budget Hollywood Godzilla film that is, in its very essence, a true Godzilla film. What's not to love about that? So with all that said, this is the last word I'll be having about King of the Monsters for some time until it hits home video. And once it does, you can expect an official review with a proper rating and everything. Feelings on a piece of art can evolve over time, and I hope that I've shown that to be the case here. It's been a bumpy ride, but I'm happy to have experienced it with you guys. And with Godzilla vs. Kong less than a year away, it's not even over yet. I'll catch you guys later, and as always, long live the king.